Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Reviewing Comics with me, your host, Alexander Turbin. Today I'm going to be going over The Mercenary, The Fortress by V. Segrelles. But before we get to that, I'd like to show you some of my own work. This is Random Access. It's a full-size, full-color anthology comic book that I produce every month with a bunch of other artists. And I'm going to make this quick. So just check out Random Access at comicscreatorsmarketplace.com or you can get this at Patreon /Alex Turbin for $3 a month. I'm really excited about this, so that's why I'm cutting the intro to Random Access short. When I was, 18, I was really into comic books, as everybody knows and as everybody always is. Well, you guys, I assume. And so I picked up in my local bookstore this, and I had all of them. There's like four. I think there's more than that. There's actually I think there's 12. I did a little bit of research into this V. Segrelles, and he's a Spanish artist, and he's in his 80s now, and he printed these up, or he did these in the he did them in the 80s. I think he started in 1980, and he started just creating these, and they were printed in Spain and probably other places in Europe. I can only imagine that they were printed in France and stuff. So he's pretty well known. He's very much the Mobius kind of or Bilal, or those European creators. Very much looks like their kind of stuff, except all of the panels, everything you see here is oil painted, which is just incredibly incredible. I don't know how many of you have done oil painting, but it's an incredibly long, arduous process. It's just mind-boggling that this guy has done all of these comic books and they're all oil painting. There's a lot to unpack with it, and so let's dive right in, because this is a graphic novel and it might take a little bit extra longer to go through all of the stuff. And I'm not sure how harsh I want to be on the, opening it up and flattening out the pages for everybody to see. But we will see. One of the problems, I just got this because I had sold my copies a while ago, just like I sell all of my Mobius. It's just too hard not to sell the stuff when it's going for, way more than you paid for it. You can find a Mobius or something like this for like $5 or $6 or something, and then sell it for 30, 40, 50, 60. Mobius stuff goes for, hundreds of dollars. So it's really hard as a comic book seller not to do that. But I regretted selling these a while ago. So I'm kind of back to getting them again, and I just got this in the mail, and I have another one that is coming in the mail too. So we're going to go through this, and then at some point we'll go through the next one. I'm not sure where this lines up in the time period of the Mercenary, because the Mercenary is obviously this dude, and all of these storylines, they're interconnected, and they have reoccurring characters and reoccurring villains and all of that kind of stuff. So it's all interconnected. It's one giant universe of the Mercenaries universe, which is really cool. So like I said, I got these in my local bookstore, not LCS. Got these at the bookstore, loved them. They weren't very much. This was only $9.95. I think I actually got it for cheaper, minus the shipping. So you can get these thin ones, because there's thin ones and there's thicker ones. The thicker ones are more expensive. They're in the hundreds of dollars. But the thinner ones are like $10, $15. So they're pretty easily attainable if you're into this kind of stuff. But let's jump into this. And I will try to, I'm not going to go over the art afterwards or the writing afterwards. As you guys know, I usually do that. The writing is a little bit off. It's very much like a spaghetti Western. Like I said, this is from Spain. He's a Spanish creator. So everything was translated into English by I don't know who. But everything, it sounds just like kind of like a spaghetti Western, where they have that weird, almost dialect, weird way of talking, because when you dub something, or you translate something, nothing translates the way you want it to always, and you have to kind of move things around. I think the best translation of an anime that I've ever heard is seen is Princess Mononoke, and that was done by Neil Gaiman. So there's a lot to the process. But like I said, it's a Spanish creator, and so it's very oddly written and oddly narrated and oddly dialogue. I will try to show some of the dialogue that I'm talking about in that respect. It's very but the story is very blunt, and it's very much kind of like the things I was saying before in the other reviews that I've done, where it's almost the narration is almost like of a narrator on high, like looking over the whole world and just telling you facts and stuff. But also some of the dialogue is very little kooky. I think they try to Americanize things, and it makes it sound a little bit weird. So let's get into it, and like I said, we'll just start from here. And so it starts off in what I think is the mercenary's lair, or where he lives. I think he lives in some sort of a I don't know what you'd call it. There's like waterfalls all around it, and inside the waterfall caverns or something is it's almost like it never says a a religious thing, but this is also very historically backed. Like there's a lot of, they bring up Da Vinci, and they bring up a lot of historical facts like that. I believe that he's also painted some World War II stuff, so I think that is I think that's an interest of V. Segrelles, is his the World War II stuff, because there's a lot of maybe not references, but like there's a lot of World War II or just war kind of interactions that we'll get to later on. If it gets to be too long, I'll probably only do half of this, and then we'll use our trusty bookmark, and we'll start from there. The next time, probably, yeah, I will be doing this on Friday if I don't get all the way through it. So anyway, like I said, they're in their hideout, their lair or something, and it's like they're priests, or some sort of sect, some sort of order. Because I will read this part, and just to get the ball rolling. Brothers, we know all too well how Klaus, after seizing the province of the Great Lake in a coup and flooding us, left us alone while he focused on building a giant impregnable fortress to store the arms and ammunition needed to intimidate neighboring states and dominate the entire land of eternal clouds. For a while now, we've been fruitlessly debating how to restore the balance and keep Klaus from giving the power formula to all his neighbors, but we never reached any agreement because we know that such a decision would provoke furious reprisals from the tyrant, and this time he'd finish us off. So Klaus is the big bad guy, and he's pretty much surrounded the city-state or whatever. And he's a tyrant. He's an evil tyrant, and he's doing all kinds of stuff, evil stuff. And this is like the last bastion of hope and goodness in the land of the clouds. The land of the clouds is really awesome, and as you'll see in other works, I'm hoping that I'll be able to get some more stuff. I think I've got this one going. No, that's the Art of Segrelles. I've got another one coming though that shows it, because really the only fantasy stuff that they have here is they have dragons. They look very much like Mobius's flying bird creatures, and less like dragons, but they're definitely dragons because they've got that reptilian feel to them. But I'm not even going to read some more because there is so much narration, so much dialogue. Basically, they are talking about the fortress that he's built, which is like impregnable, super Star Wars, super Death Star. Segrelles has seen Star Wars, and he's like, I'm going to make my own Star Wars, and it's going to be inspired by Italian history and Spanish history and early European stuff going on. which is what his world is really basically a lot of stuff. Because inside this fortress is a underneath or in here is this giant cache of weapons and gunpowder, and this is like the very beginning of getting gunpowder in their universe, and so it's very powerful. But he's been stockpiling this, getting ready to like launch an invasion into other countries and against these clerics or priests or whatever they are. So he's going to launch that. They've caught wind of it. One of their spies, a very hot woman who's one of their spies, aka Princess Leia, has gotten information out. I don't know how she got the information out because she's still there. But she's gotten the information out that there's this giant weapon and he's going to unleash it. So the day before he unleashes it, they want to attack it. And they found out, basically, just like Star Wars, that there is a hole in, or not a hole. There's like this little hole in here that if they keep it hitting, if they hit it with cannons enough times, it'll reach into the gunpowder and blow the whole thing up. Basically, Star Wars and Death Star. So the next few pages are just the mercenary and the rest of his cleric brothers and whatever they are. Like I said, I'm not entirely sure what they're. Anybody that's read this or knows anything about the mercenary, please correct me on anything that I'm wrong on, or add in whatever you think, because I definitely don't have nearly as many answers on these books as I'd like to, and I've done a little bit of research, but there isn't really a lot of information out there. But if somebody has read articles or whatever, please let me know. I would love to hear it. Like, I would love to see what the size that he works on when he's creating these paintings, because like I said, every single one of these panels is a painting. I can only imagine they're at their minimum 8.5 by 11 size, like, so they must be like this size for each panel. So that is just crazy intriguing to me. It's not like the paintings that in the what's that company that does all of the painted comic books. Those paintings are usually multimedia and they're watercolor and stuff like that. And they have a lot of shortcuts. In Vision? No. I can't remember the name of that company now. And anyway, they have a lot of shortcuts. They've got a lot of backgrounds that aren't fully detailed. They've got foregrounds that are really dark, blackened out and stuff like that. Segrelles not taking any shortcuts at all. Every single one of these panels is a fully illustrated, oil painted illustration painting. So there's no shortcuts going around it. He's just going down into the nitty gritty, doing every painting, putting it together as a comic book, and doing it like that. It's great. So the mercenaries just flying around the encampment, and they've got this. So they've created this whole plan with all of this narration. If I miss some of the narration, I'll go back and talk about it. Like I said, they've got this new way of shooting things. It's a cannon. They've created cannons, and so they're going to use this giant boat or ship. They're going to go up to the fortress and just start hammering on it. And so but the cannon, it hasn't been completely crafted and stuff. And I'm not entirely sure, but they have a breakthrough when the guy who's creating the cannons decides to use lead instead of like a steel or an iron, because he was having the cannons were being melted as the propulsed item, the cannonball or whatever it is, was melting or shattering the cannon. So he starts using lead, and that changes it. I'm wondering if that's an actual thing. Is that an actual historical thing where they were making cannons and then they had this breakthrough of using lead instead of any other kind of metal? I mean, is that why we use lead in bullets now instead of some sort of other metal? it's intriguing. Anyway, so the mercenary is going to each one of these places. He's going to the boat and trying to figure out, is the boat going to be ready? Is the ship going to be ready? Because there's a timetable. Because this guy, I'm gonna forget his name. Klaus. Klaus is his name. Everybody remember that. So Klaus is going to attack. So they have a very short schedule as to when they can mount their offensive and destroy the Death Star / fortress. So he's, like I said, the mercenary. Don't know his real name. I wonder if it's in one of those other books. I'm kind of hoping. So he's going from place to place, kind of figuring things out. And I love that V. Segrelles, he is totally okay with slowing things down. He's not an action junkie. He's not an all-out action junkie. He does have a lot of action, and there are some things about his art that I'm not totally loving, but it's very few and far between. And it's not like I don't love it. It's just like being a harsh critic of something that you do love. Like so many people, tear down Star Wars or Star Trek or whatever, but they do that because they love it. They love it, so they're critiquing. They're always, finding something wrong with it. But at your core, you love it, so you're doing this in a form of love. And so that's what I'm going to be doing with this guy. Their bodies. He is not my favorite artist is Walter Simonson, because he's so energetic and his characters are so energetic and move around the page and it's just like one burst of energy. V. Segrelles is not like that. He is very toned down. His characters aren't going to be running a lot or hacking and slashing away and doing double twirls and flips and stuff like that. These are actually people that you look at and you're like, hey, they're just walking along this cobblestone like that, and he's got his hand on him. It's a very reserved kind of thing, whereas somebody could be like, his arms could be outstretched and stuff like that. So he's got a lot of reserved stuff, and that especially translates to his backgrounds, where you've got this beautiful guy flying a dragon and he's just kind of swooping in, and it's nighttime, and you've got this beautiful moonlight and he's just swooping in. It's very much like the beginning scene of Mobius's part of Heavy Metal, where you have the female character and she's on her bird creature and she's just kind of swooping through the different valleys and stuff, and it's very similar to that, and the music's playing. This has music in my head. It's got music in the background. I'm just feeling it. I'm just feeling the cinematic, because that's what it is. It's a very cinematic comic book, graphic novel. It makes things bigger than life, just from the fantastic backgrounds to the fantastic characters and stuff. But like I said, things also can be a little bit stiff. So the cleric or whatever, what does he call? He calls him master. So that's why I guess I was thinking that he was a cleric. I'm kind of thinking he's mercenary, but I kind of think he's less of a mercenary and more like a Templar. More like a Templar knight, and these guys are the priests, and so they're in charge of the mercenary, but I kind of feel like they don't pay him, that he's just like, that's just kind of his name or whatever. But let's read this part and maybe we'll get on to the next part. Master, the boat is almost finished. How are things going here? Not too bad. The heavy launcher and vapor-powered one works well, but the light launcher exploded again yesterday. That's the 9th time it exploded. This business of powering a missile with powder is ridiculous. However much he insists on blaming the material the missile's made of. He told me yesterday that he found a solution. He's going to use lead. I hope you're right, because otherwise we have to depend on our long-range crossbows, and they're slow to reload. They'll make bean soup out of us if they throw a massive attack. So, like I was saying, some of the dialogue, some of the narration is a little wonky. This you don't think of in a fantasy world, somebody saying they'll make bean soup out of us. Maybe that is a Spanish saying, and it's very translates very fluidly from Spanish, but in this American dialect, it just sounds a little bit wonky. So they haven't actually gotten to the gunpowder and the cannons and stuff yet. So he goes to this part, and this is one of the illustrations that I really kind of want to look at, because you've got this foreground, midground, and background characters, all of this beautiful background stuff, and you look at the lava, not the lava, the molten lead being poured into these cylinders, and you have somebody um, examining them and making sure that they're just right and just the right size. And you've got all this great lighting and detail. It's really, really, it's panels like that that just make the whole comic book graphic novel explode into something that is more than just your random run of the mill Marvel or DC stuff. I know there's a lot of good painted comics out there now, but especially back in 1980, this is a completely and totally breath of fresh air. So they're making these giant cannon things. It's like like weird missile things, and it's the mercenary just kind of talking to the guy who's created all of this stuff, and he's really explaining to the mercenary that he needed to use the lead instead of the other materials, because it was cracking the cannons and all this other stuff. So he gives him a little demonstration, and he lights it up, and there's these stalagmites. I guess they're stalagmites because, right, stalactites are on top because they hold on top to the ceiling tight. So there's stalagmites that he's shooting into. He lifts up the cannon, and the mercenary is like, "Yes, but the support has been blown to bits. For goodness sake, mercenary, who cares? Take a look at the target." And he shows him the target, and it's got these huge blast holes in it. So really, this is your X-wing fighter. The cannons is your X-wing fighter. And then, like I said, a whole lot of very intricate, detailed explanation as to how the cannon is created. They even have like a little map thing here with the blast fuse, the front view, slow burning powder, quick burning powder, phosphorus, lead. So it's a whole diagram of how it's all made. And so you really have to think that Segrelles really is into this whole modern warfare or ancient warfare and stuff like that he's really poured into this thing. He must be having a blast now. I mean, he's in his 80s. I hope he's still making comics books, but I don't know. But for that time in the 80s, one of the hardest things was getting reference material. I mean, you had to go pour over magazines and books and stuff and cut out the things that you liked. Now you just, flip open your phone and you've got instant gratification for your whatever you're researching and stuff. So it's so fantastic now compared to the 80s. But then the scene switches to this Falcon, and he's flying along, and he's obviously got this little message attached to him. "Good morning, brother Citero. Has your wise bird brought any news from Nante?" "Yes, the master has it." "Master, come in, mercenary, come in. The moment has come. Look, there's the translation of the coded message." So Nante is the female spy that's in the fortress of, what's his name again? Klaust. And so she's held captive, basically. I'm a little bit of spoilers for what's going on later, but she's being held captive by Klaus in the fortress. Last message. Don't send bird again. Attack without fail in dawn of day after the 12th. Klaus preparing big offensive. Powder storehouse full. Klaus definitely there. I leave 11 tonight. Confirm attack with red lights. The 12th? The 12th is tomorrow. Tomorrow at dawn. So events are rushing forward. Tomorrow will decide our future. So they just kind of go through again and make sure all of the plans are made. And they have this kind of dialogue about Nante and if she's safe or if she's not safe and what they're going to do about it and stuff. It's the next morning. You don't even need a little blurb here saying, the next morning or 24 hours later or anything like that, because you've got the dawn, which is, like I said, a fantastic use of this oil color technique. And I love the fact that he's zooming in on characters. I wonder if he's reusing some of these panels though. I wonder if this panel is actually this panel, although it doesn't look like it. Does not look like it at all. I don't think he's reusing panels, kind of like they do in animation. Sometimes they'll use the same scene over and over again. I hate the He-Man scenes where he's flipping his sword back and forth, running towards the camera. It's like they keep using the same scene over and over again, and that takes up 15 minutes of the story, and you've only got 18 minutes of story. So, anyway, it doesn't look like he's reusing any kind of the panels or anything like that. And so he's just creating brand new artwork for every time he is creating a character or creating a panel, which is really cool. And one of the great things about oil colors is and painting is that it's so easy. I'm not going to say it's easy because oil painting is very difficult, but you can get a lot of texture, I think a little bit easier than watercolors or inking or anything like that. I think textures is super important in comic books, obviously, and I love the textures and all of this stuff. Everything is just so super textured, whether it's the metal in the armor or the water or the bricks or just skin. It's just fantastic. Some of the problem that I do have is I wonder if he's really does he have a lot of models and reference and stuff like that, because his people are not they're not showing a lot of emotion, and so I'm wondering if a lot of his references maybe photo reference or stuff like that, because there isn't a lot of emotion going on in his characters, which is really kind of too bad. But it's also, it doesn't really it doesn't really make it any worse for me reading it. Like, none of their mouths are open. They're all like closed mouths, and I'm trying to look for an open mouth where they are actually talking. And they're all closed mouths, which is kind of too bad. But again, like, it's a little nitpick that I think I can get over, because everything else is so beautifully done. So like I said, the next morning, and these soldiers are here. Here it is. Knock loud, Klaus. These guys who are inside the I think that they're inside the workshop, the where they're making the. Is that him? I think that's him. Only he doesn't have gray hair. Nope, and he doesn't have a beard, so that's not him. Anyway, they think it's Klaus. Klaus controls a lot. He's like the big government. He's like the empire, pretty much. And so they're scared stiff that it's Klaus and his soldiers, but really it's the mercenary and his soldiers. And they're really just talking about when they're going to launch the ship and when they're going to attack Klaus and the fortress. But it's getting to be 28 minutes, and I really don't want to rush while I'm reviewing this. So we're going to get out our handy dandy marker, or our handy dandy what do you call it? We'll just call it a marker. And then so I guess we'll just continue on next time from here. And this is where they're launching the ship, and they actually use the dragons to drop this big part of the equation for firing the cannons. I think the cannons are some sort of combination of steam and gunpowder and something like that, because I think this is like the motor of the cannon. And so they're dropping that, and they're loading it onto the ship, and that is where we will stop. So anyway, bookmark. That's what I was looking for, the word bookmark. So that's where we will stop, and we will continue on Friday. So anyway, thanks for watching. And again, anybody that has any kind of information on the Mercenary or V. Segrelles or the Fortress or any of his other books, let me know. I'd really love to hear about it. And if you're new to the channel, this is the kind of stuff I go through. I go through indies comics from the 70s, 80s, 90s, and beyond. And just really anything that piques my interest artistically. And this is definitely an artistic endeavor by the creator. Writing wise, it's I'm not going to say it's weak. It's a very simple plot, but who cares? It's fantasy. Fantasy doesn't need a very intricate plot. But also the translation is a little bit lost, I really believe. And seeing this in its original Spanish probably would enhance the reading adventures or whatever experience, the reading experience. So anyway, thanks for watching, and if you're new to the channel, please consider subscribing, hitting the notification bell, and all of that cool fun stuff. And but more important than that, I love the comments section. I love hearing your guys' comments about everything, and let me know what you think about the Mercenary and V Segrelles, because I personally love them a lot. And thanks for watching. Until next time, keep on creating.